Batman in the shower, Hobbits in the buff, and a straight-up sex-crazed sci-fi horror classic. You'll never believe what a difference a nude scene can make. John Hughes' filmography consists largely of movies that push the edges of the PG-13 rating. His bread and butter were family comedies and coming-of-age stories, but The Breakfast Club proved that he wasn't afraid to push things into more adult territory. This 1985 classic scored an R rating almost entirely because of the dialogue, which contained not only a healthy dose of profanity, but also frank discussions about sex, violence, and other mature topics.
When you grow up, your heart dies.
Who cares?
I care.
As it turns out, The Breakfast Club featured some R-rated nudity as well. As part of an unfortunate trend in comedies of that era, the movie was going to have a scene that featured a naked woman for pretty much no reason whatsoever. This naked woman in question was going to be a faculty member viewed through a peephole that looked into the girls' locker room. Fortunately, producer Michelle Manning and stars Molly Ringwald and Ali Sheedy called out Hughes for the gratuitous and completely unnecessary scene, and he never filmed it. The change went a long way in helping The Breakfast Club stand out among its peers at the time. As a bonus, it means the movie hasn't aged too badly either. The 2012 ensemble comedy Wanderlust follows married couple George and Linda, whose fancy New York City life falls apart when the economy goes kaput. Looking for a fresh start, they find themselves at a commune full of wacky characters. Comedic hijinks ensue. Said hijinks involve Linda taking part in a topless protest that is captured by television cameras. All you can see in the movie is the pixelated version on the news report, but depending on who you ask, Jennifer Aniston was going to bear all for the scene. A media source at the time alleged that Aniston shot a version of the scene where she is fully topless, and that the unedited shot was included in the first cut of the film. The source explained that Aniston later begged to have those shots removed. The actor's publicist denied the claims, insisting that the version of the scene in the final movie was the one that was always intended. Either way, having Linda's breasts front and center would have no doubt diminished the shock of seeing the blurred-out version during the news broadcast, which was essentially the punchline of that scene. Given that on-screen female superheroes haven't always been portrayed in the most positive light, it's easy to assume that someone might have planned for Wonder Woman or Harley Quinn to get naked at some point in the DCEU. However, it was actually Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne who stripped down in a deleted scene from Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice.
Booyah.
The scene in question is a shower sequence, during which the camera reveals Affleck's bare behind. While this scene is included in the film's Ultimate Edition home video release, it didn't make it into the original theatrical cut. Even while trying to be the edgier, more mature counterpart to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the DCEU remained in PG-13 territory right up until Birds of Prey and Zack Snyder's Justice League came along. For a movie that's supposed to be a hard R sex comedy, it's surprising that you'll find almost no actual nudity in the 40-year-old virgin. A woman shows off an exposed breast during the speed dating scene, but that's about the extent of it. There is even a scene in which the primary protagonist, Andy, is watching adult movies donated to him by work pal David, and it still shows very little skin. That being said, one of the performers in those videos did bear all, but it was in a scene that wouldn't be seen until the movie's unrated version. Stormy Daniels, who subsequently became a household name due to the alleged connection to a certain president, is a real-life adult film actor, and the woman most prominently seen in David's videos. According to writer and director Judd Apatow, that scene was taken from one of Daniels' existing films, but she was also brought in to shoot a scene specifically for the 40-year-old virgin, in which Andy fantasizes a conversation with her, with Daniels fully topless the entire time. The whole scene was cut from the original theatrical version, but restored for the unrated version later released on DVD and digital. Before finding his sci-fi niche, Denis Villeneuve directed a run of well-received thrillers that culminated in 2015's Sicario. Revolving around the war between Mexican drug cartels and the FBI, Sicario features an impressive cast, led by Emily Blunt as Special Agent Kate Macer. Perhaps unsurprisingly, both she and co-star Benicio del Toro were the most frequent targets of praise for the film.
You're not a wolf, and this is the land of wolves now.
Villeneuve is no stranger to having women play central roles in his films. In fact, the director said that Sicario's screenwriter, Taylor Sheridan, was asked to change Blunt's character to a man, but Villeneuve advocated for Special Agent Macer to stay as Kate Macer. It's unclear what would have happened to the nude scene in the script if Kate had been changed into a male character, but it was axed anyway when Blunt pushed against it. Of course, a scene of gratuitous nudity doesn't seem to fit in a film that was otherwise praised for avoiding attention-grabbing gimmickry. Few musicians have enjoyed a more successful crossover into acting than Lady Gaga. In 2019, she not only landed an Oscar for her duet, Shallow, with her A Star Is Born co-star Bradley Cooper, but also earned a Best Actress nomination for her work in that same movie. In 2021, Lady Gaga earned more raves for House of Gucci. Critics were lukewarm overall on the movie, but called out her performance as a particular highlight. The Ridley Scott film tells the story of renowned fashion brand Gucci and the struggle for control between Maurizio Gucci and eventual ex-wife Patrizia Reggiani, culminating in Patrizia spending decades in prison for hiring a hitman to kill Maurizio. House of Gucci takes plenty of liberties with the real story for the sake of a more entertaining final product, and those liberties would have been taken to an unnecessary extreme if it included a sexual relationship between Patrizia and Pina, a psychic who helps Patrizia with her murder plot. It seems that Lady Gaga decided that Patrizia and Pina should hook up, even though there is nothing to suggest the two women had such a relationship in real life. Scott obliged, even going so far as to film a steamy sex scene with the two actors, but he didn't end up using it in the movie. Natalie Portman left little to the imagination in her performance as Alice in the intense 2004 relationship drama Closer. In particular, one scene between Alice and Clive Owen's Larry in a private room of a strip club has Portman wearing very little. It actually does make sense in the context of the scene that Alice never fully strips naked. She's toying with Larry and using his attraction to her to emotionally manipulate him. But Portman did film a version of the scene where Larry gets to see everything, which might well have lessened her power over him and changed the whole story's dynamic. Ultimately, Portman had a change of heart and decided she didn't want to be fully nude in the movie. Closer director Mike Nichols honored her wishes, and only included the shots of Alice in which she is at least partially covered. Nichols even claimed that he destroyed the footage of Portman bearing all, so there was no chance of it ever being stolen and leaked onto the internet. In an interview for a book about Nichols' career, Portman had nothing but praise for how he treated her while making Closer, calling Nichols a feminist and saying he never acted inappropriately towards her. Portman added that she can't make that same claim about other older male mentors she has had in the film industry. There's no arguing that one of the most enduring images of the sci-fi horror classic Alien is Sigourney Weaver's Ripley wearing only a tank top and underwear, but she doesn't spend much time in that state of undress. Alien is too busy building tension to waste much time ogling the cast.
I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies.
The original script and storyboards for Alien, however, planned for a whole heap of sex to take place within the tight confines of the Nostromo. One of those scenes was partially filmed during Weaver's screen test for the movie. It was reasoned that the crew of the ship would often sleep together, not only as a means of bonding but also out of sheer boredom. However, other than the aforementioned screen test, none of the sex scenes or nudity ever made it off the page. The result is that Alien ended up being almost entirely sexless, something that not only set it apart from Scott's next sci-fi film, but also many of the horror movies of the day. Anyone who has seen the 2022 film Babylon might find it hard to believe that anything was left on the cutting room floor, especially in terms of nakedness. After having earned the clout to do pretty much whatever he wanted after the success of Whiplash and La La Land, filmmaker Damien Chazelle used that creative freedom to direct a 3-hour epic about the unchecked debauchery of 1920s Hollywood. Early buzz about Babylon suggested that an NC-17 rating was in the cards, and it's not hard to see why. But it would seem that there were scenes that were shot and subsequently deleted that might have pushed the rating board to give it the stricter classification if they'd been included. According to Jean Smart, who plays fictional film critic Eleanor St. John in the movie, she was in a scene that involved 4 naked men. Smart explained that the men in question were just playing football in the background of the shot, which feels like nudity included for the shock factor more than anything else. Sometimes characters appear naked during a film more for comedic purposes than titillation. And that was going to be the case with the planned nude scenes in the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy. Anyone who has read J.R.R. Tolkien's original novels will know that the books did actually contain some nudity here and there, yet there isn't so much as even a bare behind in the entire runtime of the 3 movies that comprised the original movie trilogy. While appearing on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert to discuss their Rings-centric podcast, The Friendship Onion, actors Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd revealed that audiences almost had a chance to see their naked hobbit butts on screen.
Here's the thing, there was almost nudity in the movies. Me and Dom. Hello!
Boyd explains that co-screenwriter Philippa Boyens was planning a scene in which Merry and Pippin were dropped by Treebeard. They slowly shed clothing as they careen off of Treebeard's branches. By the time they land, they're fully nude. The hobbits often acted as the slapstick comic relief in those films, but there's little doubt that this scene might have been a step too far. Sofia Coppola established that she was a force to be reckoned with very early on in her career. The Virgin Suicides and Lost in Translation comprised a stellar 1-2 punch of debut feature film efforts, the latter of which earned Bill Murray his first and thus far only Oscar nomination. But Coppola's third movie, Marie Antoinette, proved more divisive, with critics split on the effectiveness of marrying the story of the titular 18th century queen with a modern soundtrack. They also took issue with the movie featuring actors who not only spoke English, but didn't even attempt European accents. In her performance of Antoinette, Kirsten Dunst was generally praised, with Roger Ebert calling her pitch perfect in the title role. With Coppola, Dunst had a lot of trust in the director's guidance, up to and including allowing her to shoot Dunst bare breasts. But Dunst's comfort with being topless on camera proved short-lived, and she ended up vetoing that take for use in the movie.